The Billionaire's Obsession Chapter 1. A fatal encounter scene, a stormy night, the back alley of a five-star hotel. Lena Carter shivered violently, her drenched body huddled near a dumpster by the hotel's back entrance. The icy rain seeped through her clothes, clinging to her skin like a second, freezing layer. Her white blouse, now transparent and torn, stuck uncomfortably to her frame, exposing patches of pale skin to the bitter wind. Moments earlier, a wealthy guest had doused her with an entire glass of red wine. As if that humiliation weren't enough, the hotel manager had promptly fired her, citing offending a VIP as the reason. Her heart ached as she clutched at the ripped fabric of her uniform. A whole month's wages gone, she whispered hoarsely, her voice breaking under the weight of despair. Tears mixed with the rain streaming down her face, but she stifled any sound. She couldn't afford to cry aloud, not here, not when she had to think about the $10,000 still needed for her father's surgery. Suddenly, blinding headlights cut through the downpour, illuminating the narrow alley. A sleek black Maybach rolled to a stop right in front of her, the low hum of its engine vibrating through the puddles on the cracked pavement. The tinted window on the driver's side began to descend, revealing a man shrouded in shadow. "Get in," the man commanded, his voice low and chilling, sharp enough to slice through the night like a blade pressed against her throat. Lena lifted her head, her breath catching in her throat as her eyes met his. Damian King. The CEO of King Enterprises. Ruthless, cold, and feared by the entire business world. A man notorious for getting exactly what he wanted, no matter the cost. Smoke curled from the cigarette between his fingers, framing his sculpted face in a haze. His dark eyes gleamed with an unreadable intensity, sharp as obsidian. "Mr. King," she stammered, recognizing him instantly. His towering portrait hung in the hotel's grand lobby. Just 3 days ago, it had been announced that he had acquired the entire hotel chain. His gaze flicked down, landing briefly on the crescent-shaped birthmark, just below her collarbone. His pupils contracted slightly, though his expression remained inscrutable. "Get in, or die out here," he said, exhaling a plume of smoke. His tone carried no hint of warmth, only the certainty of a man used to obedience. Lena shuddered. Rumors about Damian King were as chilling as the storm around them. It was said he once personally threw a rival into shark-infested waters. She didn't doubt for a second that he was capable of even worse. The car door clicked open with a foreboding finality. Her body trembled, both from the cold and the weight of the decision before her. Running wasn't an option, her legs had long since lost their strength. She bit her lip, hesitated for only a moment longer, then climbed inside, her soaked frame sinking into the plush leather seat. The door shut behind her with a decisive thud, sealing her fate. Damian flicked the cigarette out the window, his expression unreadable. As the car pulled away from the alley and into the night, Lena's pulse thundered in her ears. What had she just gotten herself into? Chapter 2. The Caged Canary Scene, Damian's private villa, basement. When Lena Carter woke up, her wrists were shackled to an ornate iron bed. The silk bedding beneath her was unnervingly soft, contrasting sharply with the cold dread that gripped her heart. "Awake." Damian King's deep voice cut through the dimly lit room. He stood at the bedside, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, idly twirling a silver key between his fingers. "Why are you holding me here?" she demanded, struggling against the cuffs. The clinking of chains echoed ominously. Damian leaned down, his grip suddenly firm on her chin, forcing her gaze to meet his. The pressure was enough to sting. "Because that face of yours looks exactly like someone who's supposed to be dead." He tossed a stack of photographs onto the bed. Lena's breath hitched as she glanced down. The pictures depicted a girl in a flowing white dress, her features soft and gentle, hauntingly similar to Lena's own. Her name was Evelyn Hart, Damian said, his voice roughening with an edge of pain. "My fiancée. She died 3 years ago in an explosion." A chill ran down Lena's spine. "I'm not her," she whispered. "Of course you're not," Damian sneered, though his eyes held a flicker of something darker. But you'll take her place. He flung a thick contract onto the bed beside her. Be my fiancée. $50,000 a month. His voice turned colder. Refuse, Anne. His fingertip traced a chilling line across her neck. I wouldn't mind adding another corpse to the basement. Chapter 3. Fury and Fragility Scene. Evening banquet at Damien King's mansion. All eyes on them. Lena Carter was forced into Evelyn Hart's old gown, the delicate fabric clinging to her, as she reluctantly took Damien King's arm. Under the dazzling crystal chandeliers, her face was pale, but Damien's iron grip around her waist was unyielding. Smile, he commanded in a low, threatening whisper near her ear. Or I'll shut off your father's ventilator this very second. A tremor ran through her, but she managed to plaster a fragile smile on her lips. The murmurs from the crowd reached her ears. That poor stand-in. Damien has lost his mind, hasn't he? I heard he torments her every night, forcing her to mimic Evelyn's every move. As the banquet finally came to an end, Damien dragged Lena into the master bedroom, slamming the door shut behind them. Take it off, he ordered, yanking his tie loose, his dark gaze menacing. Her hands trembled as she began to unfasten the delicate buttons of the gown. Before she could finish, he seized her and pressed her forcefully against the mirror. Remember this, he snarled, his voice cutting through her like a blade. You're not even worthy of being a stand-in. His teeth grazed the crescent-shaped birthmark on her shoulder. You're just a toy. Yet later that night, as fever consumed her, and she drifted in and out of consciousness, she felt a gentle hand tug the blanket over her trembling form. In her haze, a strained, grief-laden whisper reached her ears. Evelyn, Chapter 4. A crisis beneath the surface scene. Top floor office of King Enterprises. Mr. King, Miss Summers is here, the secretary reported nervously. The door swung open, and Sophia Summers strode in, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. She had been Damien King's childhood friend, and was once Evelyn Hart's closest confidant. Damien, how much longer are you going to delude yourself? She demanded, slamming a stack of documents onto his desk. Lena Carter's father isn't even sick. He's a chronic gambler who sold his own daughter to pay off his debts. Damien's gaze flicked over the pages, his expression turning glacial. Later that night, he cornered Lena in the hallway, his hand tightening around her throat as he pinned her against the wall. Even your tears are fake, aren't they? He hissed. Her breath hitched, but she managed a bitter smile despite the pressure on her windpipe. Mr. King, didn't you already investigate me thoroughly? His fury erupted. With a savage motion, he tore at her nightgown. Yet as his fingers brushed against her tear-streaked face, he froze. Get out, he roared, hurling a lamp across the room. The crash of shattering glass echoed through the space, shards slicing into her ankle. As she stumbled away, bleeding and terrified, Lena fled the villa. But as she reached the intersection, the roar of an approaching car filled her ears. The blinding headlights belonged to Sophia's vehicle. The impact was brutal. Lena was thrown into the air, pain searing through her body. As darkness closed in, Sophia's mocking laughter echoed in the distance. A stand-in should know their place. Chapter 5. Truth in the Abyss Scene. A dim underground clinic, thick with the stench of blood. Lena Carter awoke to searing pain. Her abdomen was tightly wrapped in blood-stained bandages. The sharp sting of every breath reminded her of the brutal impact she'd barely survived. Sophia Summers' sharp, mocking laughter cut through the haze. Awake, are we? Your baby sure is stubborn. Even after that crash, it still clings to life. Lena's trembling hand instinctively moved to her abdomen. Baby, she whispered hoarsely. Damien King's child, Sophia sneered, grinding the heel of her stiletto against Lena's bruised hand. Too bad he'll never know. Pain shot through Lena's body, but desperation gave her strength. Why do you hate me? She demanded through gritted teeth. Sophia's eyes gleamed with madness, as she tore open her blouse to reveal a crescent-shaped birthmark beneath her collarbone, identical to Lena's. Because I killed Evelyn Hart. Sophia's voice cracked with deranged glee. We were twins. But why should she have Damien's love while I remained in the shadows? Lena's world spun as the truth detonated like a thunderclap. 3 years ago, Sophia had switched Evelyn's heart medication, causing her to collapse during the explosion. And Lena, she wasn't just some random stand-in. She was the long-lost third daughter of the Hart family, abducted as a child. Sophia lifted a syringe filled with a clear liquid, her expression cold and lethal. Damien will receive your corpse soon enough, she promised darkly. Don't worry, this time, he'll bury you himself.